So tonight we're kicking off a new series that we'll be in for the next 6 weeks, which is in the book of Ruth. And so if you have your Bible, you can turn there. It'll be on the screen behind me as well. And Ruth is this short little book that comes right after the book of Judges in the Old Testament. And it's a beautiful story, but it's a story that fits with that art style of from the brokenness, something beautiful can come. Maybe you picked up on that as we were reading the scripture for this evening, that from a place of brokenness or chaos or dysfunction or fear or grief, God can rebuild something beautiful. And that's why the subtitle of this series is How God Redeems Your Story. That is what God does, and that's who God is. He is a God of redemption, and He is faithful to the redemption of our story. And we wanted to launch this on Mother's Day because tonight we are celebrating the mothers here in the room. We are celebrating the mothers-to-be. We are celebrating those of you that have a heart and a desire for motherhood. It is an incredible gift that God has given to women and a heavy responsibility. But as Pastor Johnny shared, we're also celebrating women that are spiritual mothers, that have cared for and poured time and attention and friendship to so many women in their life to raise up spiritual children, if you will. And I want to highlight one woman who is an amazing spiritual mother to this church, and that's Debbie Peterson here in the front row. Debbie has been here at Crossbridge for over a decade, caring for women, pouring into women. I don't know how many women you have discipled and led in the faith over your life. Is like probably more people than I'll ever meet. But here in this church, she pours into women, and so we want to honor women like Debbie and the rest of you here that are women that God has given a great calling on your life. And we honor you for that, and we celebrate you for that. But we also recognize something else too, which is that tonight or today is complex. And there's a whole range of emotions when it comes to Mother's Day. There's a lot of grief that you can feel, or loss, or you can feel a sort of pressure or anxiety over maybe a dysfunction in a relationship. There's a lot of emotions that come on Mother's Day. And so we want to let you know that we see that and that we recognize that. And also, I hope that as we move through this sermon this evening, which is entitled How Hope Arrives, that regardless of how you entered this day, whether you entered with joy and a celebratory spirit, or whether you entered heavy and you feel that even now, maybe it took everything in you to come here tonight, that you're going to see the way that God is the redeemer of your story and how from a place of grief and loss or difficulty, God brings something beautiful. And He is faithful and He is good even when we cannot see how hope might arrive in our current situation. And so I want to walk us through the beginning of Ruth. And I want to tell you the story. So the very first verse in Ruth chapter 1 says this. It says that in the days of Judges is when this story takes place. Now that's important because if you've read the book of Judges in the Old Testament, you know it was a very tumultuous time. There's no king over Israel. In fact, the very last words of the book of Judges says this: everyone did what was right in their own eyes. It was a time of great hostility, of war, of fragile social, political, economic situations. Everybody was feeling the weight of this time when everyone was doing what was right in their own eyes. And Ruth, this story takes place in that time. So in this time of where everything feels so fragile, things get worse. In Israel, there's a famine. And so now people are struggling for provision. Our main character at the very beginning of Ruth is a man by the name of Elimelech. And he is from the tribe of Judah, and he's from the town of Bethlehem. And the saying, actually the word Bethlehem, means a house of bread. So Elimelech, who is in this city called Bethlehem, this town really, it is called a place of bread. It's a place that God provides. It had amazing fields outside of the town, and it was a place where there's so much abundance. Well, now there's a famine in the land. It is no longer operating within its namesake, and people are struggling in so many different ways. And Elimelech is struggling with what to do. And so he has a wife, Naomi, and he has 2 sons. And he decides to take a journey. In fact, it's not just a journey like a vacation. He's going to uproot his family and move them to a foreign land. See, there were rumors happening in Israel about this place that was across the sea, which is called now the Dead Sea. It was across the Dead Sea, up in the mountains, that there was this fertile plateau, which was about 25 miles wide and thousands of feet up in the mountains. And it was known to be a place where there was great provision and abundance. And people in Israel had heard about this place. It was in a land called Moab. Now, a lot of people from Israel were not going to Moab because they also knew that it was a place where they might face a lot of difficulty for many different reasons. One is they wouldn't be able to carry much up the mountains. And so you couldn't take a caravan up there. You would just have to carry what you carry on your back. And you make your way up the mountains, and so you literally arrive as an immigrant in a foreign land with all that you can carry and the skills that you have to offer, and that's it. But they also knew that Moab and Israel did not get along. They were not friendly neighbors. It was not really a safe place. So they knew that if they got there, they would not only have very little to survive upon, but they would probably face a lot of difficulty. They would face prejudice and discrimination as they go to this foreign land. Well, Elimelech says, I don't have anything else to offer. I don't know what to do. And so he decides, we're going to risk it. We're going to take everything, and we're going to go to Moab. So he goes up to Moab. They take this journey. They hike up. They bring what they can, and they try to make a life of it. They try to find a home and find some employment, and Elimelech is trying to find a job. He's the one that can really earn the most income in this time period, in this culture, but he's trying to employ his sons as well, and Naomi's trying to figure out too, and then tragedy strikes, and Elimelech dies. And there was a lot of pain that had to have been felt by Naomi and her sons. One, the pain of losing your husband or losing your father, but now also the pain of knowing that you're very vulnerable. You have lost really your chief source of protection. You have lost your chief source of income. And now you're a widow with 2 sons in a land that is not your own, with people that you don't know well, that you feel maybe some disconnect. There is a lot of fear that Naomi felt when she was in Moab when Elimelech died. But then from the ashes, God builds something beautiful. There's hope that arises. As they're in the valley of the shadow of death, and as they're struggling through that loss and that difficulty and that grief, we read that her sons get married. Now, this new family, or actually 2 new families that are formed, would have been new beginnings and new opportunities. Maybe Naomi felt we're finally going to make a go of it because now I, as a widow, am attached to other families that maybe have resources and have opportunities. And now my sons are going to have opportunities. They're going to be kind of ingratiated into the culture in a new way. And actually, this place can become a home. And they settle and they grow. And they're living in the land for 10 years as everything seems like it is moving in the right direction. And then tragedy strikes again. And her sons die. And she's left again alone. She's lost her husband. She's lost her sons. And she's left with her daughters-in-law. And there's no children involved. And so now she's probably feeling even more vulnerable. The loss is mounting. And it's important to recognize and to kind of put yourself in Naomi's shoes to feel what she feels. I think she would have been facing a multi-layered grief. One is the tangible grief of the loss of her sons. And the second is an ambiguous grief of the loss of her lineage and her family legacy. You see, losing her sons, obviously, that tangible loss would have been such a heavy blow. There would have been a period of mourning when people would have come and they would have supported her and her daughters-in-law. and they would have cared for them, and there would have been actually public mourning and services and different kind of events where people would come lend support and cry with them and give them that kind of aid. But after that window closed, there would be a new type of grief. And that grief is ambiguous grief. It's the grief that people don't see. It's not really considered by people. There's probably not physical support. And that grief for Naomi would have been the loss of her lineage and the legacy of her family, because there's no grandchildren. And she has to believe that her daughters-in-law are going to go find other men to marry and start new families, and she will actually fully be alone. Feeling this, maybe few people saw that or considered that, and that is what she is carrying after this loss. It's the second layer of grief, ambiguous grief. Now, as she is feeling all of this and processing all of this, we read in verse 6 the following. When Naomi heard in Moab that the Lord had come to the aid of his people by providing food for them. So in the midst of her grief, as she's facing great difficulty of what is she going to do now, and the loss of her sons and the loss of her legacy and the lineage of the family, we read that she hears about God working again in Israel, that God is providing again in Israel. The famine is no more, that Bethlehem is now becoming a house of bread once again, that God clears a path for her. Hope arrives by a clear path that God makes a way. He gives her a way to walk, a pathway to move forward in the midst of her grief. I was thinking this week about grief, and I think for many of us, we experience grief or loss or difficulty, and it feels like waking up in dark woods with ominous sounds, and everything is dark, and you can't really see where to go, and when you look around, you can't see a pathway forward. It feels like there's just brush everywhere, and there's thorns everywhere, and you feel stuck, and you feel surrounded. Naomi certainly had to have felt that way after she lost her sons, 10 years after she lost her husband. Stuck and surrounded with nowhere to go, but in the midst of that, God clears a path. I want to talk about motherhood, the theme of today. I was reading this quote. Anne Helen Peterson, who's a journalist, was interviewing Meg Connolly, who is a writer and a speaker, and she's talking about the idolization of motherhood, especially on Instagram. And here's what Connolly says. Ready? So much of the way that motherhood is represented on social media is a performance. But the people performing and the people viewing pretend it's not a performance. That's probably can be said just of like Instagram in general. It's performance, but we pretend, we suspend belief as if it's not a performance. But certainly in the parenting realm and in motherhood, that it's like the moments that you want people to see. It's the tailored performance, and then you watch it and you just think like that just may be normal for them, but not for me. And we all know that we are all our greatest critic. And so you look at social media and the way that motherhood is portrayed, and you think, well, I don't know if I'm meeting that standard. Parents in the room will know that it can come quite quickly, the realization or the feeling or the thought that you're not the father or the mother that you thought you'd be. And what does this create? This need to perform, this need to uphold a certain standard, or the standard that you thought you would have, but you're not, and you're struggling in ways that you didn't think. It creates ambiguous grief. Grief that very few people see, and they don't consider. And you just hold on to it. And social media reinforces that you're not meeting that standard. Maybe you've thought things like this, that you're not present enough, that you're not handling the meltdowns or the conflict correctly, that you probably need to study math again to actually help your kids on their homework, that you're too tired and you wish you had more patience, that you haven't created enough outings or core memories. You ask yourself, are you stewarding your kids' gifts correctly? Are you putting them in the right place to succeed? Are you teaching them the faith and leading them spiritually? And we could add, all of the parents in the room could add things to this list. And what it does, this need to perform, you don't meet the standard, then you feel like you're failing, and it creates ambiguous grief. Jane Anderson Grizzle, an author, puts it like this. I love this. Being a mom in 2022, so that's when she wrote it, is like being enlisted to compete for an Olympic gold as a bobsledder. Except the closest you've ever been to the track was the one time you saw Cool Runnings when you were 10. So you slide down at 70 miles an hour, not knowing what curve comes next, while believing against all odds you'll magically break the world record. We do not need to pretend that parenting is always an Instagram-worthy blast. We do not need to wonder, why are we overwhelmed or stressed? It is hard. Say it with me. Parenting is hard. The child psychologist and podcast host, Dr. Becky Kennedy, repeats this often. She says, parenting feels hard because it is hard. It's a simple sentence. That simple sentence, that parenting feels hard because it is hard, can create enormous freedom, can relinquish maybe a burden or a heavy load that you carry. But often, what we need more than just the recognition that parenting is hard, or whatever you're facing is hard, is we need a clear path to move forward. Because even though we might know it's hard and recognize it's hard and acknowledge that whatever we're facing is hard, we need to find a pathway forward, just to put one foot in front of the other. And oftentimes what we feel is that we're just surrounded and we're stuck and we don't know where to go. Well, here, how hope arrives in Naomi's life, and I believe how hope arrives in your life, is that God clears a path. In our grief, God clears a path. And so for Naomi, that path was evident. It was that God was once again providing for his people, and Naomi was going to take her daughters-in-law and go back to where she's from. And so we read this in verse 6 and 7. So she, Naomi, and her daughters-in-law prepared to return home from there, from Moab. With her two daughters-in-law, she left the place where she had been living and set out on the road that would take them back to the land of Judah. So in her grief, as she feels surrounded and stuck, God clears a path. She sees the path, which is to go back to Israel, to go back to the land, the area around Bethlehem, because God is providing. That's where God is moving. That's where God is calling her. And so she does what she needs to do to organize and pack up her things. She puts one foot in front of the other, and she walks that path that God makes known to her. What is your clear pathway forward? In your grief, hope comes with a clear path. And I believe that God has a specific path for each and every person in this room. He has a specific path and a specific purpose. And I'm not just saying that because this passage shows that God showed up for Naomi in that way. But all throughout Scripture, we see that God is guiding our steps and he's making the path known. Let me read a few verses for you. Psalm 69 says that the Lord establishes our steps. Isaiah 30:21 that says God speaks to us the way to walk. Isaiah 58:11 says that the Lord will guide you always. Joshua 1:9 reminds us that as we walk, to be strong and courageous. Do not be afraid. Why are we not to be afraid? For the Lord your God will be with you wherever you go. So as we seek the Lord through worship, through his word, through prayer, through godly counsel and community, God will make known a specific path. And when God makes known that path, we are to follow it one step at a time. And some of you here know what that path is. You felt stuck, you felt surrounded, you're in difficulty or facing grief or loss or whatever it might be, and you have felt stuck in this place, and God has revealed a path for you to walk, but you don't want to walk that path because you don't know if it's good. You're concerned that maybe God's not going to provide, and he's calling you in faith to follow the path that he has made known, to put one step in front of the other, and to go where he's calling you, to move in the direction that he's leading you. Some of you are in that place. Just like Naomi, he's revealed the path, It's time to walk it. But some of you are like, I don't know the path. Maybe God showed up for Naomi and he revealed this very clear path for her to go back to Israel, and she's walking in that. I feel stuck and surrounded. I'm facing grief and loss and difficulty, and I don't know where to go. I'm looking around, I don't see anything. So God hasn't shown up for me. Something really important for us to remember. We read that verse, right? It's like you read it, it goes like this. Naomi, tragedy strikes, and Naomi loses her sons. Both of her sons die. She's left with her daughters-in-law. And then the very next verse says, and then she hears about God working in Israel. And she decides to take her daughters-in-law and go back to Israel. From one verse to the next. We have to remember when we read the Bible that one verse to the next, one sentence to the next, is not 1 second to the next. Sometimes we think it works like that. That it's like she had grief, she was struggling, she was facing some difficulty, but boom, next step, God gave her a path. We don't know how long she sat in that grief. We don't know how long she faced that difficulty of losing her sons and the ambiguous grief of losing her lineage and the legacy of her family. But what we do know is that it was not immediate, because she was not considering leaving Moab at any point. It wasn't until she started to hear rumors and stories, and sometimes those stories kind of built up and they got confirmed, and she felt like, okay, God, this is actually the path that you're wanting me to walk. In faith, I'm now going to follow it. It was not from 1 second to the next. She was in that period of grief and loss and difficulty for a season of time. And that's important to recognize, because though God does clear a path, sometimes a clear path takes time. A clear path can take time. That you're in this situation where you feel stuck and surrounded, you're facing difficulty or grief or loss, and maybe Mother's Day for you causes that to come to the forefront of your mind. And I'm here to tell you that all throughout Scripture, reveals to us and confirms to us that God is going to reveal a clear path for you to walk. But God also allows seasons of preparation where it takes time for us to see. But God does not leave you when you feel stuck and surrounded and you can't see where to go. He does not leave you alone. He doesn't leave you wondering. He doesn't leave you without hope. Though hope arriving as a clear path can take time, you are not left alone, stuck and surrounded as you wait for that clear path to be made known to you. There's a quote from Dan Allender, who wrote this book, How Children Raise Parents. This is not on the screen, so just listen. It's on the notes if you have the app. But let me just share this quote with you. He writes, "Thank God for your children, because they are the ones who grow you up into spiritual maturity. Far more than being concerned about how to correct or convert or counsel your children, thank God for what your children are teaching you. To the degree that your heart is overwhelmed with gratitude for your children, they will gain the core education they need, the knowledge that they are truly loved, treasured, and delighted in. Only a genuinely thankful parent can invest in his or her children the conviction that they are the focus of unconditional love." This struck me because it's not only the call for parents to be thankful and grateful, but that line about the core education children need most is to know that they are loved and treasured and delighted in. That they are the focus of unconditional love. So as you wait for a clear path, as you feel stuck and surrounded, as you face grief or loss or difficulty, hope does come in a clear path, and it will if it has not made itself known, if God has not revealed it to you. A clear path will be made known for you. But as you wait, you do not wait alone. You might be in a season of preparation, needing the reminder of the core education that you need and I need more than anything. And you know what that core education is? It is the knowledge that I am loved, treasured, and delighted in by the very God who made me. It is that reminder that I need more than anything. I actually need that more than the path. I need that knowledge and that understanding that I am a child of God, that you are a daughter of God, you are a son of God, and He loves you, He delights in you, He treasures you, and you are the focus of unconditional love. You cannot mess it up. When you are facing tangible grief or ambiguous grief, the core education that we need more than anything is the knowledge that because we are children of God by grace through faith in Jesus Christ, we are loved and treasured and delighted in by the very creator of the universe. As Psalm says, He knows the amount of hairs on your head. He sees you where you are. He knows what you're facing and feeling. He has not left you surrounded nor stuck. You are, in fact, even when you feel stuck, you are growing to His great plan and purpose for you. Listen to what Proverbs 19:21 says. Many are the plans in a person's heart. Amen. We have a lot of plans. But it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. Every single one of us in this room has a whole host of plans. We have so many thoughts and so many ideas and so many goals and so many dreams and really great desires that the Lord gives that we're praying for and we're moving towards. We have all types of plans. Proverbs reminds us that we have all of these plans in our heart, but it is the Lord's purpose that prevails. And because you are a son of God or a daughter of God, and because He loves you and He treasures you and He delights in you, He promises you in Romans 8:28 that He's going to work everything in your life for good. So His purpose for you is good, regardless of what you're facing or what you're going through. So hope arrives, no matter if you feel stuck or surrounded, you're grieving, you have ambiguous grief or tangible grief, or you're facing difficulty in life. Hope arrives by God saying, you are the focus of unconditional love, my unconditional love. I love you, I delight in you, I treasure you. And my purpose for you is good, and you cannot mess that up. I want you to hear this. This is so important for us to remember. You are not powerful enough nor smart enough to mess up God's plans for you. You can't do it. You can have a lot of plans in your heart, but the Lord's purpose will prevail for you. He will be faithful. He will be good because He treasures you and He loves you. Naomi had to have been questioning that. She had so many plans, I imagine, of how she's going to take the next step forward and how she's going to care for her sons when her husband died and how she's going to care for her daughters-in-law when her sons died and what is she going to do if they get remarried and she's fully alone. She had so many plans, but the Lord's purpose prevailed for her. And as we move through this book over the next several weeks, you're going to see how God is faithful not only to Naomi, but to Ruth, who the book is named after, who also felt immense loss and grief and fear. You are not smart enough nor powerful enough to mess up God's plans for you, and His plans for you are good, because by grace through faith, you're a son or a daughter of God, and He loves you, and He treasures you, and He delights in you. And so, yes, hope comes as a clear path. And if God has shown you a clear path to walk, walk in it. Do whatever you got to do to pack up your stuff and follow where God leads, because there is blessing and goodness as you follow the Lord. But if you do not see a clear path, do not wait feeling alone. Be reminded of what Ephesians chapter 1 verse 5 says. Just like let this verse hit you for a moment. God decided in advance to adopt us into His own family by bringing us to Himself through Jesus Christ. So in advance, not because you've done anything, but because He loves you, He has decided to adopt you, to make you a son or a daughter of His family through Jesus Christ because of his death and his resurrection and the free gift of salvation given to you by grace. He has decided to do it, and look at this verse. This is what he wanted to do, and it gave him great pleasure. I think one of the things that we need to be reminded of more than anything, no matter the decisions we've made in life or the difficulty we face or the failure that we feel like or the mistakes we've made, that God wanted to adopt you into his family, and it gives him great pleasure that you're a son and a daughter of his. That he loves you and he values you and he treasures you and he honors you and his plan for you is good and you can't mess it up. His purpose for you will prevail. And so my hope for all of us in the room, regardless of what it is that is causing difficulty or fear or grief, because I know we're all facing that in some way, is that we would do two things. One, we would say, God, I don't see a clear path if that's you, and ask for God to reveal it. God, will you show me where to walk, how to walk, where to go? And then while you're in that place, facing whatever it is that you're facing, would you read Ephesians 1, verse 5, every day if you have to, that God wanted to adopt me, and it gives him great pleasure that I am a son or a daughter of his. I'm loved by God, I'm delighted in by God, I am treasured, and I cannot mess up his plans for me, which are good.